This is the marking video for the Year 7 Baseline Skills Assessment. Please make sure that your name and your primary school have been clearly written in at the top of the sheet. Question 1. Complete the table below by choosing the correct word from the list to match with the meaning given in the table. Anno Domini. These Latin words mean after Christ. AD. 1,000 years. The correct word is millennium. Separate divisions of time in history are known as periods. 100 years is known as a century. Before Christ is abbreviated to BC, and every 10 years is referred to as a decade. Please make sure that you have corrected any mistakes that are on the work that you are marking. Question 2. What we are looking for here are the skills of comprehension and possibly inference. But initially you are to make 3 observations from the picture. The 3 examples we have are getting married, people celebrating, or riding in a carriage. Of course, any other observation you can make from that picture is perfectly acceptable. Finally, question 9. This question has been placed in here to provide an extension task to see what your extended writing is like. We're interested to see what you understand by the idea of extended writing and how you write it when given the opportunity. In history, we need to work on your extended writing to make sure that you improve at it. So here you are asked to think about your favourite time in history, write an introduction to a short description of the period. Then follow this up by thinking about why you like it. Write about what it is and the subject you enjoy. Provide some examples. Finally, sum up why you think this is the best period in history. Your teacher may have already made you aware, or you have learnt it from your other humanities subjects, that these 3 elements of point, evidence, and analysis are the key to writing extended writing in history. This is probably the most important task in terms of illustrating the progress between this test and the next one that you will do later, which is your second baseline assessment. It's very important that you reflect upon what you have done right, what went well, and equally importantly that you think about how you can improve, the IOTI, in order to improve. Question 3. In this task you are being asked to identify whether or not the source listed here on the left is a primary source, a first-hand account from the time, for example an eyewitness account of a historical event, or a secondary source, a second-hand account written or made after the event, for example a school textbook. In the column here on the right you should have primary or secondary written down. So a history textbook about Roman Britain would be a secondary piece of evidence because it's a textbook and it was written after the time. The 6 Wives of Henry VIII, a TV film, well, there was no film when Henry VIII was alive, therefore it must be secondary. A Roman sword would be primary as it's from the time. A Roman coin, or a coin from any period, is primary to the period it comes from. A knight's armour would also be primary as it's from the time. A vase would be primary as it's from the time, but a copy or a replica of a Victorian dress isn't from the time and therefore it would be secondary. Can you please check and correct? Question number 4. Number the 10 dates below so that they are in the correct chronological order. The earliest should be number 1 and the latest should be number 10. Now in this question we're testing your understanding of the skill of chronology, and BC events are earlier and AD events are more recent. The bigger the BC number, the further back in time it is. The bigger the AD event, the more modern the historical event is. So the correct order should be 7, 3, 1, 9, 6, 10, 4, 2, 5, 8. Once more, the correct order should be 7, 3, 1, 9, 6, 10, 4, 2, 5, 8. Question number 7 then. An artifact, an object usually made by people, for example a Roman coin. Oral, to talk, this usually means speeches or eyewitness reports made at the time. Pictures can be any type of picture, from a hand-drawn cave painting to a film documentary. Written is anything written down or typed. Look at the table below and decide which type of evidence they are. Place a tick in the column next to the one you think. So bones are an artifact. Diaries are written. Photographs are pictures. Tape recordings are oral. And newspapers are written. Can you please make sure that the boxes are ticked correctly, or amend them to ensure that they are right for future reference? Question number 8. List what you think is wrong with this picture and write a reason to say why you think this. In this picture there are 4 mistakes. In no particular order then, we have the camera and the watch, the radio or the fork, the aerial and the headphones, or the plate. So we have several things that are wrong. What you now need to do is explain why. Question 5. In this particular activity, your task is to identify which century each of these dates come from. We, for example, live in the 21st century. As you look at each of these dates, pay particular attention to the first 2 numbers that make up the date. Any event with 10, as in 1066, is actually in the 11th century. 12 is in the 13th century. 2, because we're only looking at the first number here, is in the 3rd century. 1485 is in the 15th century. 1745 is in the 18th century. 899 AD is in the 9th century. 902, the 10th. 110 BC is in the 2nd century BC. 44 BC is in the 1st century BC. AD 55 is also in the 1st century AD. Question number 6. Complete the following sentences. Choose the word from the box below. Bias is when someone has a one-sided opinion about something. We can recognize bias by finding unfair opinions. Bias is useful because it helps us find out a person's beliefs or opinions and beliefs. If someone supports a particular football team, they might show bias when describing a match. Everything their team does would be described as being fantastic, but everything the opposing team does would be described as lucky or awful. Please make sure that the words are corrected, but be aware that 1 or 2 of these could actually be interchanged. So these 2 could be the other way around, or the rest.